Hi, I'm Helen Klebesadel from Madison, Wisconsin. Welcome to Creativity Lessons. Today we're going to be doing a series of studies on how to paint clouds using watercolor. One of the most important tools I'll have today is my paper towels. These are brown. We're going to be using Daniel Smith paint. I have a number of different brushes, a flat brush, a large number 14 brush, a number 10, my eraser. This happens to be a Faber-Castell switch eraser, but any eraser will do. We'll be using 140-pound watercolor paper, and I'll be taping it to my ArtMate painting board. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but I've done a little reference drawing here so that I know where I can paint later. I did a little study earlier that I thought would help me. You can use a photograph that you've taken from your backyard, you can do a reference study, or you can just look out the window or paint on site, called plein air painting. I use these little cups because I like to mix up enough of the paint ahead of time so that I don't have to go back in and remix it to try and achieve the same color I've used before. So you see how much paint I put in, about a quarter's worth, and then enough water to just cover the top of it, and then I mix this all up ahead of time very well so that it's nice and consistent. I am going to paint in the background, or the negative space behind the clouds first, and that will give us the shape of our clouds. You may notice here that I have quartered my paper and created 4 little places where we'll be doing paintings today. And here I'm just kind of going gently around my clouds. I mentioned before that I had masking tape. This is just regular masking tape around the outside. And I also have 2 containers of water. Every time you do a watercolor painting, you should have 2 containers of water. You can see here that I've painted in all the negative space behind the main clouds. And now I'm going to do one more layer of dark negative space to give the impression of many clouds, which means I'm going to go in and this will be the color of my second cloud just behind these big white ones. So here you go. Gives the impression of a layered space. And you can see the 2 layers of the blue paint. Remember, this is Daniel Smith's cerulean blue. Gives the impression of another layer of clouds back there. And as long as you work quickly, you can draw with your paintbrush. But you have to work quickly to make sure you don't leave a line. You want to paint into that paint while it's still wet. See how they just emerge with another layer of clouds? I'm a little bit random in doing this. So here we go. We've got a nice second layer of clouds that gives it a deeper space. And in just a second I'm going to stop this and we'll start giving those clouds a little more depth. There we go. Now I'm going to start mixing the paint that I'm going to want to use to give the grays in the cloud. For this particular study, I'm going to use what's called complementary or opposing colors. When you look on a color wheel, this color blue is exactly across the color wheel from this color orange. And when they're mixed together, they start to neutralize each other and make a very interesting gray. So I'm going to take a little bit of my blue and just mix it in with my orange. And then we'll see what we get here when the orange and the blue start to play with each other. It's a very dynamic feel. So let's see what we can do with this. Alright, the first thing you can see is in the pencil mark here that this cloud is on top and that one's behind. And even though it is a smaller cloud. So I'm going to just go in and start right off the bat by shaping that a little bit. I need to work quickly because I don't want a line. So I put that color down and then I go in with the brush and I just soften it, kind of shape it like big puff balls. I'm thinking of the sun being over here, so this side of the cloud is lit in a little, so it's to the sun is to the right and up higher. So even though I'm applying this with a line with the brush, when I go in and soften that edge, it no longer is a line. So I'll do this for a little while, and you can see how it turns out. Alright, you can see that I've added some shadowing to a large portion of the cloud, but I wanted to show you while I do this last little bit. Remember the idea that the cloud is, you have to pay attention to what direction the sun is coming from, and we're imagining it coming from this side. Well, as the sun moves through the cloud, it actually creates a shadow underneath. The cloud is shadowing itself. So let's go ahead and bring in that last bit of shadow that'll give it depth. You can see I added just a tiny bit more blue to my gray. Let me dab some extra there. I have to move quickly because I don't want those edges to get rigid. I want it to be soft. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the big cloud. You can still see the pencil marks. When this is completely dry, I'll go back in and I'll just erase those pencil marks, so they'll disappear completely. Sometimes when you're painting, they disappear anyway, so you don't really need to go back in and erase. But my final act on this little painting will be to erase those marks. You can see the orange and the blue separate a little as I use them. That's okay. It creates a nice effect. Oops. Always be careful not to dip your brush in the wrong container. There we go. It's a nice storm coming. Now I'm going to do just a tiny little bit more on this last cloud behind here. Make that feel like a storm cloud too. And there we have it. Looking at this after the paint dried, I decided that it needs one more layer of our gray wash in order to get the clouds to stand out a little better. And I went in and I added just a little more blue to my mixture of orange and blue. And now I'm going to paint just another layer underneath of that shadowing from above, from the clouds above. And not everywhere, just in a couple places. So the cloud stands out a little better from the background of the sky. There we go. Much better. So as a reminder about how we painted these clouds, we started with the first wash of blue after having drawn the clouds and painted an overall background in the negative space of a light blue. Then we followed that up with a second layer of blue to give the impression that the first layer of clouds were behind the white clouds. Then we went into the white clouds with our mixture of the orange and the blue paint mixed together to create grays, and created the edges of the fluffiness of the clouds, and then went in with water to soften those edges. And we layered that up until we got a sense of three-dimensionality in the clouds. We finished off with a final layer of shadowing underneath the cloud to give it a sense of three-dimensionality, and we were done. Thank you for creating watercolor clouds with me at Creativity Lessons. This is Helen Klebesadel saying happy painting.